So in the first video, we showed you how to build one of these earthen ovens. We covered that completely. This one's finally dried out and ready to use. So let's bake some bread. We're going to start with a small warming fire. This is a small fire with sticks that we're going to fire up right inside the door of the oven. As soon as that is going well, I'm going to push that to the back and then add some more wood to it. The drier the wood, the better. While this oven's heating up, let's talk about the tools we're going to need for baking. We're going to need a few tools to do the baking in our oven. We're going to need a rooker or something similar. Almost like a hoe. This is a tool we can use to rake the coals out of the oven or push them into the back. It needs to be metal so it doesn't catch on fire. After we move our coals, we need to use a scuffle or something similar. This is a rag mop that you use in the water. It'll clean off the floor. It'll moisturize the inside of the oven. It'll cool off the floor just a little bit so we don't burn the bottom of our bread. You're going to need a peel. The peel is what we use to put the dough into the oven with and to take the loaves out when we're done. And you're going to need some sort of door that we can put on our oven that will trap the heat inside. So it's going to take 1 to 2 hours for this to warm up to get to temperature. Now, while we could use a thermometer to figure out whether we're at the right temperature, it's probably just as easy with a little bit of practice to learn a couple other ways to figure out what temperature it is. The first way is smoke. Ovens that aren't up to temperature yet will produce a good bit of smoke. Until the temperature inside reaches a certain point, the wood doesn't burn very efficiently. So once it's hot enough, we'll see less smoke. The second indicator is related to the first. As the oven's warming up, the interior will become covered in black soot. But as the oven reaches the proper baking temperature, the walls will change from black to gray as the soot is burnt to ash. We've had the fire going for about 2 hours in the oven here, and I've let it burn down to coals. The black soot at the back, and in fact all over, has burnt down to ash. If I feel the very top here, it's almost too hot to hold my hand on. That gives me a good idea. Each oven will be different in how much. You're going to have to judge. Now what we're going to do is rake the coals out, put the door on, and let it soak for a little bit. Soaking the oven gives the oven a chance to even out in temperature over the whole thing so we don't have hot spots. We're going to let it set anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. We've let this soak, and it's a possibility that this is still too hot. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little handful of corn meal and toss it on the floor. If it turns black or catches on fire, then obviously it's still too hot on the inside. We can see some smoke coming off of this. It's probably still just a little too hot. What we're going to do is we're going to take our scuffle and we're going to wet down the inside and let it soak just a little bit longer. We're going to give the oven one quick swabbing with the scuffle. It's going to clean out any ash on the floor. It's going to cool the floor down just a little bit, and it'll add a little moisture to the inside of the oven. Let's recheck the temperature of the oven, see if it's ready to go yet. A little bit of cornmeal. Ooh, warm. It's just turning light brown, so it looks like perfect temperature for baking. Just before we started up the oven, I worked on some bread dough, and this has been rising, so it's ready to put in the oven. We're going to let these bake 10 to 12 minutes. Well, while we're waiting for this to cook, there's usually a progression that you would use these ovens. You would want to, as soon as it's up to temperature, you would want to cook something that you'd need a hot oven for. Many times they'd cook pies first, then they'd cook breads. When it cooled down a little bit after the breads were done, they'd cook things like cookies. And then even after cookies, they'd still continue to use the heat. They might cook beans after that for a long period of time. And even when it's even cooler, they can do things like dry herbs in their oven while it's still warm, or even firewood for the next time they're going to use it. I can smell the bread even out here. I'll bet you it's ready to come out. And the loaves look really good. They look just right. Let's take them out. And there they are. It's important you let your loaves set for a little bit while they're still warm. You want to let them cool off. They're actually still baking on the inside. If you cut them up now, they'll be a little doughy on the inside. For all kinds of fine 18th century cooking equipment, you can check out our print catalog or see our website. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, and wow, I'm going to slice this up and have it with butter. That's all this needs.